This is a warning from a veteran detective with 25 years on the force. Imagine the person sitting right next to you, your most trusted friend, someone you've shared 1,000 laughs with. Now imagine their eyes suddenly turning cold as they lung at your throat with a jagged blade. Would you believe it? You might think this is just a scene from a psychological thriller, but I assure you, it's not. I am here to share a blood-chilling record from a crime scene I personally processed and investigated. This isn't just a story, it's a reality that can unfold when a 20-year bond is shattered in a single violent moment. What I am sharing with you today in this survival file is far more than a simple crime report. This isn't just about documenting a tragedy. Think of this as your final emergency exit, a vital blueprint designed to save your life and the lives of your family members. We aren't just looking back at a cold case. We are looking at the critical steps needed to prevent the next one. Please do not look away. Your life may depend on the information I'm about to reveal. The nightmare began several years ago on a stifling August night, where the humidity was so thick it felt like it was choking you. In a quiet suburban alleyway, a man was seen frantically hunting another, clutching a sharp, lethal blade in his hand. The air was pierced by a terrifying symphony, the desperate screams of the prey and the eerie, guttural roars of the hunter. The perpetrator was a man in his 30s, and the victim? He was his brother-in-arms, his closest confidant. When the perpetrator first opened his small fried chicken business, the victim was the very first person to arrive, cheering him on with a heart full of sincerity. In a world where everyone else might have doubted him, this friend was his sole supporter, the one pillar of strength who truly wanted him to succeed. When the 911 dispatch center received the call, it was a scene of absolute, unmitigated chaos.
Help. Please help me. There's a man running around with a knife. He's in the alley. He keeps stabbing him. He won't stop. Please. You have to get here now. Please.
The caller's voice was paralyzed with pure terror, and through the receiver, between the frantic pleas, you could hear the sickening thud of the blade and a beast-like roar screaming, "You have to die!" When I first stepped onto the scene, the perpetrator was just standing there. He was clutching a blood-stained blade, with an expression that was completely vacant, as if his soul had left his body.
That man. He planted a listening device inside my head. He was trying to poison me. He put toxins in the chicken to kill me.
Those first words out of his mouth, they were the absolute embodiment of a paranoid delusion. During the forensic processing of the scene, we found something telling in the corner of the kitchen. Tucked away in the very shop where he fried chicken every day was a massive pile of unopened prescription medication packets. Not long ago, the perpetrator was filled with hope. He had just opened his own fried chicken shop, dreaming of a new chapter as a self-employed business owner. Amidst the rush of incoming orders, his biggest enemy wasn't the illness, it was the medicine. He struggled with the notorious side. Effects of antipsychotics, extreme drowsiness, and a soul-crushing lethargy. He had chickens to fry and deliveries to make, but with the overwhelming drowsiness clouding his mind, he made a desperate choice for the sake of his livelihood. He unilaterally decided to stop taking his medication. Without a doctor's consultation, he cut off his only safety net just to stay awake. At the scene, the victim's father grabbed my hands tightly. Through his uncontrollable sobs, he began to testify.
I begged him to stay away. I told him time and again that he was unstable because of his schizophrenia. But my son, he defended him until the very end. He'd say, "Dad, he's a good person at heart. If I don't help him, he'll be all alone." He was so worried about his friend that he even looked out for his business startup costs.
The victim's final post on social media was a heartfelt message of support, wishing for the success of his friend's new shop. To determine whether the perpetrator was under the influence of drugs, we requested an analysis from the National Forensic Service, NFS. The results were delivered to us by a forensic pathologist, shedding light on the physiological state of the attacker at the time of the crime.
The toxicology report confirmed that almost no traces of antipsychotic medication were detected in the perpetrator's system. Forensically, this is conclusive evidence proving that the perpetrator was in a state of hallucinations and delusions caused by acute relapse. Schizophrenia is caused by an excessive secretion of dopamine, a neurotransmitter in the brain. Prescribed medication works by blocking this dopamine from binding to receptors, effectively stabilizing the brain. However, once the medication is discontinued, the brain falls into a state of uncontrollable dopamine storm. This is not a matter of willpower. It is a physical phenomenon, much like a truck with failed brakes hurtling down a steep hill.
With the brain's brakes completely shattered, the perpetrator perceived his own friend as an assassin sent to kill him. The court of first instance sentenced the defendant to 30 years in prison. Although he had prepared the weapon in advance, the sentence reflected a partial consideration of his mental instability caused by the illness, rather than a premeditated intent to kill from the very beginning. More than 80% of individuals with schizophrenia suffer from a lack of insight into their own condition. Expecting a patient to take their medication on their own is far more cruel and dangerous than asking a diabetic patient to perfectly regulate their insulin levels without any help. From the perspective of a veteran detective with 25 years on the force, I will now outline the warning signs of treatment, discontinuation, and relapse. Before a tragedy strikes, a patient always sends out warning signals. First, the collapse of daily routines and deteriorating hygiene such as not washing, refusing to change clothes, and isolating oneself in a room is powerful evidence that frontal lobe function is declining. Second is the manifestation of referential delusions. If they start claiming people are laughing at them, or that the TV is talking about them, and especially, as in this case, if they mention even in jest that those closest to them are trying to harm them. You must immediately consider inpatient treatment and isolation. Third is the total disappearance of sleep patterns. When medication is stopped, the brain enters a state of hyperarousal, causing them to pace the house all night or obsessively watch out the window as if conducting surveillance. When these three signals are detected, please remember, this is no longer a time to offer comfort in the name of friendship. It is a medical emergency that demands immediate professional intervention.
Hello, I'm Detective Han. I will now share practical survival tips to protect yourself and your family in such tragic situations. Listen carefully and remember these well starting from now. First, long-acting injectable treatment is a necessity, not an option. Expecting a patient to take daily oral medication has a failure rate of over 90%, especially when they are overwhelmed by daily life or suffering from severe side effects, as seen in this perpetrator's case. In recent years, medical technology has made breathtaking advancements. There are long-acting injectables available today, with effects that last from 1 month to as long as 3 months per dose. This eliminates the need to monitor whether the patient has taken their medication. It serves as the most powerful safety net, drastically reducing the rate of relapse. Second, accept the lack of insight. It is meaningless to scold a schizophrenic patient by asking, "Why aren't you taking your medicine?" This is because they fundamentally deny the fact that they are even ill. Therefore, when a patient complains of side effects like drowsiness or lethargy, do not dismiss it as mere whining. You must immediately consult with their doctor to adjust the dosage. Drowsiness is not an obstacle to treatment, but a signal that the medication needs to be adjusted. Third, utilize the emergency admission system when warning signs appear. If the patient shows aggression or is in possession of a weapon, do not hesitate to call 911 and clearly state that it is a psychiatric emergency. Under current law, if there is a risk of harm to oneself or others, emergency admission is possible with the combined consent of a police officer and a physician. The sentiment of "I should endure because we're family" or "I should help because we're friends," this kind of paternalism can sometimes trigger an irreversible catastrophe. Isolation is not a punishment, it is a form of protection that saves both the patient and our society. Lastly, beware of social stigma. If you look at YouTube comments or online communities, there are many posts branding all schizophrenic patients as potential murderers. However, such hatred and exclusion only drive patients deeper into the shadows. Ultimately, it isolates them from the treatment system, creating a vicious cycle that leads to even greater tragedies. The more we turn a blind eye to this illness, which affects 1% of the global population, the more that blade will eventually turn back toward our society. Creating a proper treatment environment is the surest way for all of us to stay safe. This has been Detective Han. I love you all.
In my 25 years on the force, I have witnessed countless violent crimes, but cases as heartbreaking as this one are truly rare. 20 years of friendship were severed by a single stroke of a blade, and the lives of those left behind have become a living hell. Schizophrenia is an illness that can be managed well enough to allow for a normal daily life. However, the moment treatment is stopped, it becomes an uncontrollable catastrophe. The weight of this illness is far too heavy to be left to an individual's will alone. Ensuring that the state and our social systems take full responsibility for their treatment until the very end, and for us to possess accurate knowledge about the illness, that is the only way to prevent a second or third victim from ever being claimed. I hope that today's reconstruction of this case, the betrayal of friendship, the tragedy of discontinued treatment, remains deeply engraved in your minds. If there is someone around you who is suffering mentally, please reach out with a warm hand. But make sure that hand is holding a consistent treatment record rather than just a bag of medicine. That is the wisdom that will protect both your friendship and your life at the same time. Please like and subscribe. If there are any misconceptions about mental or psychiatric illnesses that you are aware of, please share them in the comments. Also, let me know any topics you would like to see covered in upcoming Cheongdampol's Survival Files. This has been Cheongdampol's Survival Files. To be continued with the next clue.